So I'm not the main person here on this panel. These are these two experts here, and I would love you guys to introduce yourself for a minute.
Hello everyone, good afternoon. Excited to be in Berlin. My name is Hussam, and I'm the founder of a company called Tamatem. Tamatem is the leading mobile games publisher for the Arabic-speaking market. We take successful games around the world, we localize them, make them culturally relevant, and release them into the MENA region. We have 35 million downloads in the past 2 years and published over 40 different games.
Hi, my name is Sagi. I am the head of the App Store optimization team at yellowHEAD. yellowHEAD is an online performance agency located in Tel Aviv, about 50 employees, both performance marketing, Google and Facebook acquisition. Then we have the ASO team. We'll deal with some of the largest brands in the world, including Playdica and Miniclip and hundreds of buttons, Tonophone. And I'm sure we're going to have a great talk.
So we will always abbreviate App Store optimization with ASO. Makes it easier for our tongue. So just for you guys in terms of a core statement, what is ASO for you?
So ASO basically, I think, is the process of making an app page better, not of making an app page perfect, because there isn't really such thing as a perfect app page. But once you realize that there's no such thing as a perfect app page, you also realize that there's always a better app page out there. Now, a better app page does two things. First, it's better for searches, right? So the better your app page is, the higher your app is ranked for relevant queries, and the larger variety of those relevant queries that your app is ranked for. And then the second thing is conversion. So the better your app page is, the better your screenshots are, the better your app page will convert, right? So the more installs you get for each user that actually looks at your app page.
My specialty today is in the MENA region, so I will speak about that in specific from an ASO point of view. We have been focusing a lot on, as you said, the icon of the app. A/B testing for the icon is a key part of the success, because in my case, whenever our team thinks that this is an amazing icon, everyone in the team love it, then we find that this is the lowest converted icon in the market. So we think that we are experts, but then the users, we will need to adapt for what users really like. This applies also to the previews, the description, the one-liner, the keywords, everything in that. So this is for me, this is ASO, and this is how we can play with that and optimize it to make a really good app page. This is like the front of your store, and this you want to make it look as good as it should.
I definitely agree, and I definitely agree with Hussam on the point of the fact that you think that an icon looks the best doesn't necessarily mean that it converts as well, right? Because two things. First, you might not think the same way your users do, right? So the icons that you like might not necessarily be the icons that your users like. So that's one thing. But the more interesting thing is that the icon that your users like isn't necessarily the icon that will make them install the app, right? So there are a couple of agencies that do surveys or some kind of explicit surveys when they kind of show users, potential users, several icons, and then they ask them, which icon do you like best? Now, you would think, or they would think, that the icon that the most users claim to have liked best is the icon that will prevail in an A/B test. But that's rarely the case, because whatever looks best isn't necessarily the thing that people actually install. So you need to do proper A/B testing. That's fairly easy. I think we'll speak about this later. In Google, there are ways to do that, in iTunes as well. But you need to do A/B tests, not surveys.
So when we are, I mean, you're publishing in the MENA market, and that's quite a challenge. Specifically, if I, as a European developer, have a cool app and I have English and German text and everything, and I give you this app, what are the challenges you have to actually make that fit to foreign markets?
I feel that the MENA region is very similar to the European and the American markets. It's absolutely not similar to the ones in Far East, like China and stuff. But we feel that whatever works in Europe and the US works in the Middle East. Although once you try to do that, you will see a few changes that you will need to do. And this is where A/B testing comes in handy. For example, one of the games that we have published had an amazing icon. For me, I will just convert immediately whenever I see it.
You think you would. You don't know you would. You think you would.
But for me personally, when I saw this icon, I thought that, okay, this is an amazing, it looks amazing, but maybe sometimes the colors can play on a big role. If you have text on the icon versus if you don't have text on the icon. One of the examples that we found that one of the games that we have launched didn't convert really well, so we just added the name of the game on the icon, and that made a huge difference. Using of characters in the icon versus using something from the stage, for example, for the game, also can make a huge difference. One example in particular that we are now working with a Chinese company to launch their game in Arabic. It's an MMORPG game, and we thought that this icon will convert best. The icon that they already have for their, it's already localized to English, but then we realized that the one in Arabic will be totally different.
So when we move beyond the icon, the whole App Store page is basically the advertising for your game to the end user once he found it. What's beyond the icon?
So there are a couple of things that users look at when they look at an app page if we talk about conversions. And it also varies between stores. So on Android, the most important aspect of an app in terms of graphics is definitely the icon. Now, that definitely holds, or that mostly holds, with organic installs. And the reason for that is that in Android, if you would search for whatever search phrase on your Android phone, you would see that you get about 6 or 7 search results on your search page, right? You'll see basically the icon and title, icon, title, icon, title. So the icon would be basically the main things that people see under search results. Once they click on it, they would look at, in that order, feature graphic, short description, and then descriptions. The long description, the actual, whatever, 300 words or whatever, actually only about 3% of users actually read that. No one, and when they do read it, they don't sit and they say, that's interesting, I would like to read more. And they don't take 5 minutes of their time to actually read the description. They actually just skim read through it. So that's in Android. In iOS, what you want to take care of is actually we found the icon to be less important in iTunes, specifically in search results, because on iOS search results, you get the icon, the title, and then the two first screenshots if they're vertical, 1 screenshot if it's horizontal. So you want to make sure that your 2 first screenshots, if they're vertical, do really make a difference, and they describe the benefit of your apps and the USPs and whatnot.
So when we are talking about searches, before that step, when I see the app page itself, I'm basically searching for whatever I'm interested in. How does that influence ASO, the keywords?
So that's a very major, keywords are a very major source of traffic, right? There are numerous numbers, but basically, I think the latest number is that 53% of app installs derive from searches, right? Now, those searches might be brand-oriented, and if it's brand-oriented, well, there's only so much you can do. For example, Tinder, for example, one of our clients. So they get the vast majority of their installs from people who just search for Tinder. Like the moment someone searches for Tinder, you don't really mind who the competition is. They don't really mind what the icon looks like. They don't really mind what the screenshots look like, right? Because they know what they search for. If it's a general search query, then that definitely has a very meaningful impact. And that's when you want to make sure that your app ranks well for those keywords, or at least think about which keywords your app can rank well for.
So when you're talking about keywords, sorry to interrupt, it means that you're also looking at what keywords the potential competition are using?
In our case, we tried a lot in our previous games to use generic keywords that can drive a lot of traffic, and maybe someone, if they come to the store, they will see something that they like. And for example, we will put a very generic in Arabic, very generic terms, like for example, games or something generic. And when people come and see that there's a huge list of so many games that have the same keyword, maybe they will like ours and download it. Then you will discover that this type of traffic, the quality of these users, will not eventually convert, or if they even download your app, they will not spend a lot of time in it and they will eventually delete it. So the more comprehensive search on keywords and the more effort that you put into finding the exact things people are searching for that will lead them to convert, I felt that this is a better strategy in finding keywords.
I'm sorry, a better strategy than what's the other strategy? I'm sorry.
If you are using generic keywords to drive people to install your game,
But
instead of going for example, if you have a racing game and you have people coming only for searching for racing, drifting, racing cars in specific categories, they will yield into better results.
all right, yeah, that's definitely the case. So most games, think we have different concepts of what a generic keyword is. A generic keyword isn't necessarily free games, right? I mean, there's only a handful of apps that might be able to rank well for free games. Luckily, we'll work with one of those, Able Pool. But that's only a handful of apps that can actually compete for those keywords, definitely in English. But yeah, I agree with Hussam that you want to describe what the app is about, and you want to make sure that when users search for a specific phrase or for a relevant phrase, that your app will appear first. Now, you want to ask yourself two questions. First, how much traffic does that keyword has, all right, if it's a relevant one? And then the second is whether I can rank well for it. So, for example, we work with a lot of like major slots apps, Slotomania, Jackpot Party, whatever. Now, those apps are able to rank well for slots, right? But we also work with lower tier slots apps. With those apps, we also try to target longer tail keywords. Play slots online, slot machine games, and whatever. So the idea is to be aware of your strength, to be aware of which opportunities lay ahead, and then take the best strategy to fulfill those opportunities. You agree? All right, cool.
So you're researching keyword volumes, keywords about the competition, you're A/B testing, but this is like not a static thing because the competition changes all the time. The keywords might be sexy or not, or overused. So this is like...
Yes, ASO is definitely an ongoing process. And that's part of the idea. I started this conversation with the idea of the fact that there's no such thing as a perfect app page. So keywords always change. Keyword rankings always change for several reasons. Your app changes, so you get more installs, less installs, so your keyword rankings change. Your competition changes, so they target different keywords, or they get more installs, so they move you up or down the rankings. The algorithm changes, right? And then also there's also, I think, a component of error within the App Store algorithm, both in iTunes and in Google Play. So what you want to do, either with an agency or by yourself, whatever fits you best, is keep tracking those keywords, keep tracking your conversion rates, and make sure that whatever keyword that you hold in your title, in your description, in your keyword list, and so forth, it performs well. If it does perform well, keep it. If it does not perform well, remove it, try something else instead, and wait for the next iteration. So it's definitely not a one-time thing. It's an iteration by iteration kind of process.
With every update that we do to the game, we review the keywords. We review also the description. I like the one-liner in the description. I feel that it adds the most to the people. They don't tend to read a lot, and if they want to read, they want just like to skim through the content and maybe see one line. So if you have something, for example, it worked for us really well, saying that this game has over 1 million downloads. Download it now. I feel that people tend to really interact more with that. It's an ongoing process, as Sagi said. Every time that you do an update, just review your keyword, your description. If you want to do more testing on the icon, on the previews, on anything.
But if you continuously monitor the keywords and the one-liner, which seems to be pretty important due to how the searches are structured, and every territory has its own habits, trends, and what they really like in terms of one-liners or keywords, and you imagine that doing worldwide, we're talking about how many territories? I mean, this is like major work.
About 50 territories in Google Play and about 25 in iTunes.
So there's 70, well,
no, it's
how
the
many,
same.
how many
Every
people?
territory that appears in iTunes also appears in Google Plays, but not.
So imagine I'm a small little developer. I cannot afford services, and I want to do it on my own. How many people do I need to do that on a level where I can actually leverage to increase the conversion?
So any developer needs to think about ASO and to try to modify their keywords, modify their screenshots and whatnot. Even if you have 20 installs per day, that's still something you want to do. You won't reach the same significant statistics as quickly, but you would get like the basic idea. So it won't be 90% significant, it will be whatever, 70% significant. Yeah. But you still want to do it. Now, if you're a small-time developer and you don't have the necessary means to localize your app or your app page to all 25 or to all 50 languages, that definitely makes sense. Concentrate on English or whatever main market that you hold, and then some other markets that you think hold good opportunity for your brand. That means market that you're able to derive installs from, markets that you're able to derive monetization from. So think about that. You don't need to choose the entire list of 25 countries, but you can go with like 3. One of them might be the Arab market. One of them might be whatever, the Japanese market. But choose a couple. At yellowHEAD, we mainly go with all 25, but obviously in yellowHEAD, we work with like the larger publishers that have more means.
If you focus on your top 3 markets, as Sagi said, I think it's more than enough as to start. And you will realize that this is something that you want to invest in, because this is a big investment. Every time that you want to change the description or the keywords, then you will go to a translation service or someone local from the market to change these for you. This is like a very intense on a small developer. So just pick 2 markets, 3 markets that are best. And if you are starting to see, if you really capture these markets, if you are really strong in these markets, maybe then this is a good chance to go to the 4th market and invest a little bit, and then go one step at a time.
Well, I do agree with Hussam about small developers that they probably want to start with like 3 markets. You do want to keep 2 things in mind. The first one is that there's sort of an interaction between markets, right? So the store takes into account how many installs you get on a certain market, like in Jordan or in Syria or in another Arabic market, and also how many installs you get from other markets. Now, if you do the localization process for more than 3 markets, for 10 or 25 markets, you'll probably get a boost in all 25 markets that will serve to benefit each individual markets by interaction. So that's another thing to keep in mind, though you don't absolutely have to. And then the other thing is, when you do the localization or the translation, keep in mind that translation and localization are not the same thing. I think we'll probably elaborate on this in a minute.
Tell me, localization and translation.
All right, let's go on.
Okay, yeah, it's definitely so different between localization and translation. And in our case, we are saying that we are trying to do culturally relevant apps or promotion in the market. So sometimes you feel that you want to translate something, tomatoes to Tamatem, which is a literal translation, but at the end of the day, you want to see what's relevant for the users in your target market. We develop or launch a lot of racing games, and in our racing games, the translation, if you do a literal translation, it might be enough, but it will make a huge difference if you want to include certain cars, for example, that are very popular in a certain market that people can relate to or act upon. And this is not entirely ASO, but this is within your game itself, that you include certain things that each market likes. And you know that the Chinese market audience is totally different than the ones in the Middle East. It's totally different than the one in the US. And you will keep reiterating on that until you reach what you really need.
Yeah, I definitely agree. And one thing to keep in mind, not all people are aware of this, is that you can have a localized app page without having your actual app localized. So like I said, work with a lot of slots apps. Now I don't know how many of you play slots apps, but it's a very simple game, right? You just have the slot machine and you have a play button. Now, people in Germany might search for the German phrase when they want to play slots. So there are several. One of them is Spiel Tamatem. Oh, you guys are all from Germany, so you know that. And I apologize if I don't pronounce this properly. But there are other several phrases, other similar phrases. So if you just take the English translation for slots, you will only reach one phrase in German. This is not necessarily the best phrase for your app. Well, there are other phrases. So if you do localization, if you take into account, like we do, the different search volume that each phrase gets in different markets, what are the opportunities, what's the competition in that market, you're liable to reach a much stronger audience in those non-US markets that are usually uncompetitive. As to what Hussam said about cultural differences, so once in a while we also do localized screenshots, not only translate the captions, we actually do them locally. And one of the things that we did with Tinder is that we took their app page, and in several markets we tried local women, right? Because in their app page you see like women that you might find on Tinder. So the question is whether in China Chinese ladies will work better, or in Germany, or in Thailand, or in Israel, or whatever. Now we've seen that mostly that is the case. Like Israeli people would respond better to pictures of Israeli women. There was one market that preferred European ladies over its own. I would not say which market that is, but if you'll come over and ask me quietly, I will. But that's very interesting. So the culture thing is also something that needs to be tested.
Okay, so when we see this dynamic app store where we have to keep up on the frequent changes, and you have to update that really frequently, and you have a service doing that for you, specialized in these territories where you have no idea. When I'm as a German, if I would claim I know how HR works, that's like too daring. I don't. So, I need someone who actually is specialized there. So when you see all this happening, where do you think is the market going within the next year in terms of the App Store and, trying to be searchable?
Yeah, I think always working with professional services, either a publisher or an ASO agency or someone who can do that for you is much easier, because you will be able, if you speak Arabic, English, and French, or Arabic, English, and German, you will be able to do that on your own. It's good. If you want to expand to more markets, it might be really difficult to do it on your own. You can ask a few friends to help you out, but you will not be able to target all the 25 stores on iOS or 50 on Android unless you have, or you are working with someone on the ground or someone professional to help you with that. And the last thing that I want to say is that it's an investment. If you want, it's just like similar to anything else in the world. If you want to put $100 to get a return of $150, then this is the business for you. If you feel that you will be so happy with a $5 outcome, then just remain on your own target market. So it's relatively similar in concepts.
Yeah, I definitely agree with Hussam that doing ASO with the agency is easier, but a lot of small-time developers don't have the necessary means to take on a full ASO service. Now, ASO is sort of a multiplier. So if you do that, if you have like 20 installs, you won't just do ASO and reach 1,000 or 10,000 installs per day, right? Because that's simply not possible to do mainly by keywords. But if you have, let's say, 1,000, 2,000 keywords, 2,000 installs per day, doing ASO with someone who's professional makes sense. If you have less than that, also do ASO, but read our blog, read other people's blog, read Hussam stuff, so you'll be able to do it fine on your own to some extent. That's one thing. And then you also ask where the market is heading, right? A year ago when I was asked where the market is heading, everyone was talking about deep linking and streaming apps and instant apps, and that instant apps thing has started to happen just recently, but that didn't really happen in 2016, right? So no one can really know where the market is going. What I do think, though, is that ASO is part of a holistic marketing strategy, and it's been that way up until now. It's even more so moving forward. So whoever can do ASO and SEO, if you have knowledge in both ASO and SEO and knowledge of user acquisition, if you do the 360, right? If you do the complete services, then that will be better than simply doing ASO. That's what I think.
Okay. So we are open to questions, which maybe two or three.
So I wonder, maybe you can say something about the thresholds when it comes to ranking and volumes.
Yeah.
Do you understand what I'm saying?
So if I understand it correctly, you're asking which position will allow you to reach some traffic, right?
When by which variables do you often see that apps really start taking off, like climbing very high on the ranking, for example? Is it when they get 100,000 download installs? Is it when they get very high, very good ratings, or what are the variables?
The algorithm kind of takes into account both installs and reviews, and also what words you're targeting, or how many installs you currently have. So it depends. If you want to rank well for a competitive phrase, you'll need to have like as many installs or as good reviews as your competitors. If it's less competitive, then you have another set of competitors that is likely less powerful. Overall, I would say that to reach like a proper position within the App Store, the minimum, depending on the tier, is about 2K installs per day, something around. Something around those
Okay,
numbers.
we actually ran out of time. Sorry for that. I already got the 0-minute warning. Thank you for attending, and you can approach these two experts personally. They have booths out there.